So here's the preamp. We're going to be playing Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall Unity. Basically, it's the Unity version of Daggerfall. Um, Daggerfall is a 1990 X game that was DOS based and just pixelated. I mean, I think it worked on like Windows 95 maybe or Windows 3.11 way back in the day. And here's a bit of an intro that was added on by the Unity developers. So the Unity developers was a third-party set of people who were huge fans of the game, but they decided to port it to the Unity engine to drastically improve its graphics and give it the much needed modability, because it wasn't really moddable before because of the engine that it was in. And anybody who's an Elder Scrolls fan knows that with Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim, that's one of the best things about the game is all the modifications you can add to it, you can tweak it, and make the game into something that appeals more to you, mechanics wise, graphics wise, UI wise, you name it. Modifications, mods are the best thing you can do to a cool role play. And so a little bit of history that I didn't share, that I'd love to share with you guys is I'm a huge Elder Scrolls fan. I've played nearly all of the Elder Scrolls games, starting with Arena back in the day when it was first came out, and that was one of my favorite fantasy RPGs of all time. But bit of a disclaimer, I never got around to playing Daggerfall. I think I owned it, but at the time that I bought it, I don't remember why. There were some reasons I couldn't play it. I think it was too buggy, and or the computer I had at the time wouldn't play it properly, and then I just never got around to playing it again. But I ended up playing the other games later on down the line. Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, even Star Kitty. Hi, Star Kitty. How are you? Good to see you. Star Kitty and I used to play Elder Scrolls Online for a while. So I'm really excited about jumping back into this game because I kind of always wanted to play Daggerfall, and now's my opportunity to do it. The other cool thing, by the way, that the Unity mod did for it was they fixed a lot of the bugs. So there you go. We should be able to really play through the game and really enjoy it. We're going to start a new game and start a brand new character from scratch. I've already done some preliminary research and figured out a lot of the ways we can tweak the game and tweak the character and how we can get started to make sure that we're successful early on. The difficulty of Daggerfall is pretty high up there. It's not like Dark Souls or anything, but if you don't kind of do a little bit of min-maxing with your character at the beginning, then instead you just kind of keep him a jack of all trades, middling with the kind of the same abilities across the board, it's not going to work out too well for you. You're going to die a lot, and it's going to be frustrating. So we're gonna kind of hyper focus our character at first, and then later on as we level up and power up, we'll be able to make modifications and changes to him, go in different directions. I think today we're gonna focus on him being mostly like a melee warrior, but he's gonna also be using some magic. So I think we're gonna call him a custom class war mage. And looking at the after having looked at the races, I'm going to kind of go over this a little bit from what I remember from some of the guides and stuff. If you were going to do an archer class, it's going to be one of the hardest characters in the game to play, so keep that in mind. But if you were, you'd want to go with Wood Elf because he gets bonuses to hit and damage, bonuses to hit and damage with bows. If you're going to go with a melee fighter, then you probably want to go with either Red Guard or Dark Elf. The reason why that is Dark Elves have a bonus damage and chance to hit every 4 levels, and Red Guards have a bonus damage to hit damage and chance to hit every 3 levels. Obviously, Red Guard a little bit better. Now, the rest of them are kind of flavorful. Mainly, you just kind of get some special resistances abilities. honestly, in Daggerfall, Argonians, you play them because you like the character race. It only gives you kind of reduced fatigue when swimming, and you can hold your breath longer than other races. It's kind of the worst ability of the races in Daggerfall. They've definitely improved upon those things in later games. Um, the Breton is pretty good. It has extra resistance to magic, so if you want to be kind of a defensive style person, that could be useful. Um, the High Elf is immune to paralysis, which is very useful. There's a lot of nasty monsters, spiders and scorpions and stuff in the game that can paralyze you on a hit. So being immune to paralysis could be pretty useful. Um, Khajiits in this game are kind of really similar to like our Argonians in that they didn't really think out what they could do very well. So the only special advantage they have is that they have a bonus to climb checks. Woo! Like really, it's terrible. It's not that big of a deal. So unless you just like that race and you want to kind of role play it in your head, then there's no reason to go with Khajiit. Nords, the only thing you get from them is extra resistance to frost, which honestly, when I did my little initial play testing with the Daggerfall Unity, I didn't get far enough into the game to determine if that matters much. I didn't really face anything that was hitting me with frost spells or frost effects, or so I don't know. It does seem kind of a little bit useless in Daggerfall. Um, so to boil it all down, I think um, I would like to either make a race-wise. What I would like to do. I typically like to go with a dark elf. Um, I just kind of am drawn to that character race for some reason. Um, but the Red Guard seems pretty badass and awesome too. I think that's what I'm gonna do. They kind of hail from Hammerfell, and um, there's rumor that Elder Scrolls 6 is going to go back to the Hammerfell and High Rock region or something to that effect. Maybe it'll be mostly focused in High Rock since we'll see. But that's kind of the rumors and stuff that are floating around because of the graphical map that Bethesda released. Any rate, so we're going to go ahead and go with with the Red Guard from Hammerfell, and yeah, we're going to go ahead and pick him. Um, we're going to make a male character this time. Um, because the racial face pictures in the game, they're more interesting as females. They're like cooler looking artwork, but all the male characters in Daggerfall for some reason are just really scary and intimidating looking, and I'm feeling that. I want to, if we're gonna make this bruiser guy, this guy who's really a good warrior who supplements his capabilities with magic and stuff, kind of almost like a battle cleric, so to speak, or something, then I want him to be really intimidating. So you definitely want to choose from a list of possible classes, because this allows you to scroll down here and create a custom class. And so the custom class, we're going to go ahead and give it a name now. We're going to call it War Mage. There might be I didn't actually look and see if there was a War Mage in there, but that's okay if we're copying. It's no big deal. So the first thing we're going to do, from what from what I followed as far as min-maxing goes, a lot of the research was done the way the mechanics were implemented in Daggerfall. Again, this was, in the past. This was really way back in the beginning stages of the game of the series Elder Scrolls games. So they hadn't improved upon and fixed all those things to make them really work really well. So you can min-max pretty hard in Daggerfall, and you kind of want to. Supposedly, willpower doesn't really matter a whole heck of a lot, because it's really hard to resist magic spells even if you have a high willpower. So there's almost no point in having a lot of willpower. But we don't want it too crazy low, so we're going to put it at 25, which gives us 25 points to spend elsewhere. And since this guy is going to be a melee fighter, he doesn't really need a lot of agility either, because even though agility improves your chances of hitting, it more matters about hitting with bows. Whereas since this guy is going to be a melee fighter, he's going to need to have lots of strength to be able to hit better and do more damage with his melee weapons. And from what I was reading, the skills that we pick are actually more important for your hit characteristics than agility, makes an impact on. So from what I understand, also personality isn't super important either, but you don't like there's some differences between the original Daggerfall and Daggerfall Unity. Supposedly in original Daggerfall, you could put your personality all the way down to 10. Basically, you just be this just annoying, obnoxious lump, and still be able to talk to people and get information out of them. That's kind of lame. They did improve upon that in Daggerfall Unity, but despite the improvements in Daggerfall Unity, they didn't go too far with it. So supposedly you want to have at least a minimum of a 40 in your personality, is what they were saying. Now, for any character class, for whether you're making a mage, an archer, or a warrior type, speed is the most important thing. The second most important attribute is going to be depending on if you want to be a melee fighter, a mage, or an archer. If we were going to go archer, we would have actually done more points into agility instead of doing what we did here. But I'm not going to do an archer this time. So what we want to do is move some of these points into strength. You can only go up to 75 max right here anyway. And then the other, we're going to put 25 here, which jumps us up to 75 in both of those. Now, supposedly, endurance is pretty important, but the way we're going to create this custom character class, we're going to actually max these hit points up all the way to 30. Which is the most extra you can get. So that means that we're going to get 30 hit points per level. That's going to give us huge survivability. Now, you may have noticed when I did that, the dagger goes up. What that means is this makes it harder and slower for our character to advance. Now, don't worry about that right now, because we're going to actually go in and change this by adding special disadvantages and advantages. And that will both raise and lower this. And it's going to work out pretty well. Anyway, let's finish up with the attributes here. So we could throw some more into endurance, which would give us like a couple extra bonus hit points when we level up. But since we're going to be getting 30 points per level anyway, I don't think it's really that big of a deal. Keep in mind, I am going to share with you one of the mods I have on here. It's slightly cheaty, not a lot, just a little bit, but it kind of really makes the game a little bit more fair. And that's that we automatically gain our max amount of hit points each time that we level up. So that's why we really don't really need to blow a lot into endurance. We just don't want it being too low either. Like, we don't want to lower it, because that also affects how quickly you heal when you're resting. So we're going to leave endurance sitting at 50 right here. So how's it going? You with me so far? All right. So the next thing that we're going to do here, since we're going to be making this guy a war mage, basically, where he's going to be able to like heal himself and teleport around and levitate and open doors and stuff like that. He's going to have a few magical skills that are going to be pretty important. So we could dump them into intelligence. But I think actually we're going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to dump some personality points into luck. So supposedly luck has a small effect on every other role in the game. On top of that, luck does improve your drop rate for equipment and gold. So by improving your luck, we're going to hopefully see an increase in the cool loot that we get. and the amount of gold and stuff that we get. Because fantasy role playing, that's, I mean, it's about, you know, fighting the monsters and leveling up and getting the loots. And I love the loots and the adventure. So, anywho, that's where we're going to do that. We're done with the attributes. Now we're going to come over here. I'm going to actually come back to the skills after we do the special advantages and disadvantages. For special advantages, again, I've done some research on this. For some people recommend that you actually put immunity to poison in here. And when in my initial playthrough with my first test character, I can see why they say that, because if you get poisoned pretty early on, you have to get up to a certain. Okay, let me back up a second. When you get poisoned in Daggerfall, not only does it lower your hit points every minute that ticks by in game, but it also lowers your ability score, or some ability score. And if the ability score drops to 0, or if your health drops to 0, you die. And there's very few ways to cure poison in the game. However, despite that, I've run into it. It's a frustrating experience. However, I quick save a lot. And so the thing is, even though there is a spell that cures your poison, but early on it's not always that effective, and frequently what happens is you don't have enough mana to cast it, so it can be a real pain in the butt. Also, you can get potions that cure poisons. However, you don't get those early on. You typically can only buy them at a temple. And you have to be high enough rank in the temple, in a particular temple, you know, like the different temples have different rankings and tiers where you can actually buy potions. And I think I've figured out from looking at the guides that we want to join a Temple of Arcade, because that's the quickest way that we can get to buying potions. The thing is you have to be a decent level, you have to have some decent skills, and you have to rank up within that temple, and you do that by doing quests for them. And so the point I'm trying to make about all this is you're pretty far into the game. When I say far, you have to play quite a bit, you know, a good 15-25% into the game, and there's a lot to this game. But so I can see why they recommend you do immunity to poison. But despite that, it takes a huge hit on the skill advancement chart. So I think it's worth it to ignore that. It just means that early on you want to get to a Temple of Arcade as quickly as possible, and you know, rank up in their guild effectively, so that you can start buying those potions. Because once you have some cure poison potions, you can also get cure disease potions and healing potions. Once you can buy those, at that point, it doesn't matter anymore. Like then you will have wasted being immune to poisons. So what are we going to pick under special advantages? First off, expertise in. Let's talk about this. So there's lots of different cool weapons in the game. Most of the guides recommend you pick either long blade or blunt weapon. And from my play experience, I see why they say that, because the game drops a lot of those at you. Maces and flails and hammers, lots of different types of swords. From what I remember correctly, there's only a few axes, only a couple really. And you don't really want to pick hand to hand, because it's just, you know, unless you just want a terribly hard challenge and role-playing aspect of it, you don't want that. Same thing with short blade. Short blades, there's only just a few short blades, and they just don't pack the punch. There's no point. It's better to just pick long blade or blunt weapons. They do the most damage. Technically, missile weapons, the bows do the most damage. However, the negative, the reason why it's so hard to play an archer, is that you miss more often than you actually hit. Whereas, because there's just some things, some factors, besides the RNG, you know, the dice rolling factor that goes into it. There's also the fact that you have to aim it yourself, and you can be so far off that you don't even actually get the RNG. You don't actually get the game to roll whether you hit or not, because you had no shot of hitting from where you pointed. And to couple that with the fact that the enemy sometimes moves back and forth, it makes it even worse. And so you have to really focus on that, and we're not going to do that. Long story short, which I've already made too long, I apologize. We're gonna go. We're gonna go with Longblade. It's the safe and interesting choice. I don't know. The bladed weapons of this game are really cool and cool looking. So the next advantage we're gonna grab is increased magery 3 times. So what that means is you know normally your magery is going to be equal to your basically the amount of spell points, the amount of mana points, so to speak, that you have is based upon the your intelligence score. So it would be equal to your intelligence score, but with this special ability, we're going to do 3 times our intelligence score. And let me see, was there? I think that was the main 2 advantages that I ended up liking. Let me double check. Yeah, like I don't think I added. I felt like it was worth it to add any other advantages. Um, so some of these are really broken. Like spell absorption is supposedly it really jumps up the skill advancement. Here, I'll just click on it and you'll see what I'm talking about. You could just say in general. Look at it, jumps way up here into the red zone where it takes forever to level up. But this makes the game easy mode, from what I understand, because basically instead of instead of being damaged by spells, you just absorb the energy of the spells, which fills up your spell points, your mana, and so it makes the game boring and easy. We don't want it too easy. We want a little bit of a challenge. We want to enjoy ourselves. So I think the only advantages that I'm going to pick are going to be the expertise in Longblade and 3 times spell points. We're going to end there. Now this is where we get super tricky with the edit special disadvantages. There's an interesting chart that you can find online that talks about the amount of reduction in so whenever you add an advantage, it uses up points. It's kind of a point system. Like putting this up here adds 10 points, and if you give yourself a disadvantage, it might reduce 10 points. But they're different for the different disadvantages and advantages. Some are -2 points, -1, -6, -10, -14. So the coolest balance that I have found, if I remember it correctly, yeah. So this is going to be a little bit a bit weird for those of you who've played the game before, but we are going to put in a special disadvantage material types. We're going to have forbidden material. If I remember what I did, I think it's forbidden material silver and forbidden material steel. Now, again, if you've played the game before, look at how much it dropped that down. So that's going to, in the early parts of the game, that's going to make it tough because actually, was it the silver? Let me think for a second. I think forbidden material. Was it silver? Yeah, okay. So we are going to do those 2 because they lower this a lot, and we want to get this as close down to as possibly can. So the thing is, for those who've played the game before, you start out, and the materials that you can use early on and that you find early on are going to be leather, iron, and steel. The first time you get really cool level, upgraded stuff is silver, and so by making it such that we can never use silver or steel, any particular material, means we can't use a weapon that's of that material. We can't use armor that's of that material. So this is going to limit us quite a bit. But from my initial playthrough, I found that the iron and leather and chain and items that you can use, you'll use for quite a while. And honestly, silver ends up being a waste because you end up starting to find elven way before silver, or not way before, but around the same time as silver. And elven is just better than silver. In fact, there's another important thing to note about these materials is that the monsters that you're going to face, the early ones are fine. They can be hit by any kind of material. But later on, there's going to be monsters that can only be hurt by silver and above. Or let me show you the different material types. So it goes like this. Iron is the lowest, and then steel, and then silver, and then elven, and then dwarven, and then I believe, I haven't gotten this far into it, I believe the next is mithril, and then maybe ebony or adamantium, and then after that orcish and daedric. Orcish is supposedly super rare and not really worth it, but at any rate, so back to the point of doing this is a lot of the weapons and armor that you're going to find early on, you're going to have for a while and use for a while. And once you find elven, once you get your level up pretty quickly to level 5 and above, you're going to find lots of elven and you're going to start finding dwarven, and you're going to immediately replace all that stuff anyway. So, and I think our survivability will be just fine, even if we don't have, silver or steel. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Now we're going to also give ourselves a critical weakness to shock. This was actually recommended by one of the best guide makers. Look at how much that dropped that down. Isn't that credible? He didn't explain why he recommended this. I can only assume, and this was for both the old Daggerfall and Daggerfall Unity. So I guess supposedly not too many enemies use shocking damage, so that's the only thing that I can assume. Otherwise, why pick it? And so far from the, I got my test character up to about level 7. I haven't faced anything that had shock, at least that I knew was shocking me. So yeah, there we go. That's what we're doing. And let's see. I think we could also do a low tolerance to disease. See, that lowered it. Did that lower it that much? Reduce that. Maybe. Definitely want to pick a phobia. We're going to have a phobia to animals. We're scared of the animals because we like the animals. We don't want to hurt them. We're not really scared of them. We're just scared of hurting them. So, that's why we got phobia of them. What that means is you have a harder time hitting and damaging animals. But they recommend this for the game because there's basically so few critters in the game that you face in the dungeons. Occasionally you'll find a bear or tiger or something. But when you do face animals, they're pretty weak. And so not that big of a deal. And then we're going to do this, I think we are going to do low tolerance disease. The reason why that is early on you can get a cure disease spell, and we're going to be, remember I was talking about that we're going to want to buy potions as quickly as possible. So we're going to go to a Temple of Arcade and rank up so that we can get those potions of cure disease as quickly as possible. So if we get a disease, big deal. We'll just drink a potion. All right. So there we go. Look at how far we lowered it with all of those. Isn't that crazy? So now, at the beginning, before we did anything, it was right at the average, right? But we gave ourselves some awesome special advantages, including this one, which, as you guys saw earlier, really jumped it up, right? Despite those, with the particular disadvantages that we picked, we've actually lowered this, which means it's easier and quicker to level up. So this is going to be a pretty amazing character build, I think.